The hallway smelled of antiseptic and loneliness, a sharp, sterile scent clinging to the walls like a second skin. Nurses rushed past, clipboards tucked under their arms, while doctors barked orders over the hum of intercom announcements. Patients groaned softly behind closed doors. The hospital pulsed with life and urgency, but amid all the chaos, room 209 stood eerily still. The door hung slightly ajar, a faint strip of dim light spilling into the hallway, ignored by everyone who passed. Some even quickened their pace as they approached, eyes averted, as though the sadness within might cling to them if they dared to look. It wasn't until Nurse Simone Hayes, 28 years old and quietly resilient, heard the muffled sound of someone crying that she stopped mid-step. Exhaustion from her 12-hour shift clouded her mind, and at first she thought it was just fatigue playing tricks. But there it was, Agina's soft, broken sob beneath the steady hum of fluorescent lights. Simone turned toward the door. Her dark skin glowed faintly under the harsh hallway lights, and her tight curls were tucked neatly beneath her surgical cap. Her ID badge read S. Hayes, RN, but few people ever looked closely enough to remember her name. With a soft knock, more out of courtesy than expectation, Simone pushed the door open. Inside, the room was cloaked in shadows, the blinds drawn tightly shut. Monitors beeped softly beside the hospital bed where an elderly man lay, so thin he seemed to dissolve into the starched white sheets. Tubes snaked into his arms, and a tray of untouched food sat cooling on the side table. His face was turned away, buried in his pillow as he wept softly. Simone hesitated only a moment before stepping fully inside and gently closing the door behind her. She checked the chart at the foot of the bed. Mr. Henry Dalton. Late 70s. Multiple chronic conditions. DNR order in place. The notes scrawled across the chart painted an ugly picture: noncompliant, difficult, racist tendencies reported by staff. Rumors had swirled at the nurses' station. Dalton was a cruel old man, miserable to every aide who tried to care for him. He was the patient no one wanted. But Simone didn't see rumors. She saw a man alone and crying. A man who, beneath the anger, was simply broken. She moved quietly to his side and pulled up a chair, offering no words, just the lightest touch to his hand, a silent gesture that said, "I see you. I'm here." Dalton flinched at first, startled by the unexpected kindness, his red-rimmed eyes locking with hers. His lips trembled, but no words came, only another shuddering sob. "It's all right," Simone whispered, voice soft as a lullaby. "You're not alone." She stayed. She said nothing more. Sometimes presence was the medicine most needed, the willingness to sit with another human being in their pain without trying to fix it or flee. Simone chose to stay. She didn't notice the small phone tucked between a paperback and a tissue box on the bedside table, its red recording light quietly blinking. She had no idea it was capturing every moment, every gentle word, every silent act of compassion. Simone returned to the hallway, blending once again into the sea of hurried nurses and clipped voices. She had done what felt right, as she always did, with no expectation of acknowledgement. Compassion, she knew, was often invisible work. At the nurses' station, others muttered warnings. "Dalton's a nightmare," they said. "Don't waste your time." Simone nodded politely but paid no mind. She'd heard such talk before about difficult patients, about people who were more trouble than they were worth. But she'd learned long ago to meet people as they were, not as rumor painted them. Later that day, as the shift wound down, Simone found herself back at Dalton's door. Nurses bustled past without offering assistance or even eye contact. A few shot her pitying looks, certain she was wasting her time. But Simone knew otherwise. She knocked softly and stepped inside. Dalton was awake this time, staring blankly at the television. He didn't acknowledge her, but she noticed the slight twitch of his hands, bracing for a confrontation that never came. Simone moved deliberately, sitting once again at his bedside. "Good afternoon, Mr. Dalton," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "I'm Simone. I'll be your nurse today." There was no response, just the taut silence of a man who had built walls high and thick. But Simone stayed. She checked his adjusted his oxygen mask, recorded his vital sol in silence, never pushing, never filling the air with forced conversation. She simply remained, an undeniable presence, steady and kind. Eventually, Dalton's voice cracked the silence. Barely above a whisper, he rasped, "You're not like the others." Simone paused, her hand stilling on the blood pressure cuff. She met his gaze, eyes tired and blue, burdened by a lifetime of regrets. She didn't know about the recording device still watching quietly from the bedside table. She didn't know her quiet act of kindness would soon shake the world awake. Day after day, Simone returned to Dalton's room. Maybe it was the way his eyes softened ever so slightly when she entered, or the hesitant way his fingers twitched toward her before pulling back as though reaching out had become foreign. Whatever it was, Simone couldn't bring herself to walk past his door without stopping. The rumors continued, but she ignored them. Dalton, though gruff and distant, wasn't the monster they made him out to be. Beneath the roughness was something deeper, a hollow sadness, a lifetime of being unseen. Once, as she adjusted his blanket, Dalton murmured, "People only care when the cameras are on." Simone smiled faintly beneath her mask, thinking it a bitter observation from an old man. But the words stayed with her. The next day, as she helped him sip water, he spoke again. "You know how to tell real hearts from fake ones? Wait until no one's looking." She didn't ask what he meant. She simply stayed, smoothing his pillows, telling him small stories about the hospital vending machine eating her quarters, about the stubborn roses in the courtyard that refused to bloom. Whether he replied didn't matter. What mattered was that she stayed. Unbeknownst to Simone, the small recording device continued its vigil. Every moment, every act of empathy, quietly captured. One morning, as Simone parked outside the hospital, sipping her lukewarm coffee, her phone began to buzz. At first, she ignored it. Group messages, she assumed. But the buzz didn't stop. Notifications poured in, calls, texts, social media tags piling in faster than she could read them. Confused, she clicked one of the messages from her friend. "Simone, is this you? Turn on the news." She scrolled through the flurry of links. There, splashed across headlines and news feeds, was the grainy footage of her sitting quietly beside Dalton's bed. No fancy edits, no dramatic music, just her simple act of care. "Unknown nurse's kindness goes viral," one headline read. "Caught on camera, the compassion we all needed." Simone's heart raced. She barely noticed the world buzzing around her as she read comment after comment praising her empathy, her heart, her humanity. When she arrived at the hospital, heads turned. Colleagues who had once overlooked her now smiled and offered awkward congratulations. Senior nurses called her name, beaming as though they'd always known her worth. An urgent call summoned her to the administrator's office. There, alongside the administrator, stood a tall man in a dark suit. "Miss Hayes," he began, extending a hand. "I'm Daniel Morrison from the Dalton Foundation." Simone stared, confused. "The what?" Morrison smiled gently. "Mr. Henry Dalton, the man you sat with so selflessly, is not just another patient. He's the founder of the Dalton Foundation, a powerful philanthropist. He set out to find someone genuine, someone who would show kindness without knowing who he was." Simone's knees nearly buckled. "You," Morrison continued softly. "You passed the test." Through tears, Simone listened as Morrison explained Dalton's decision to entrust her with leadership of a new initiative aimed at expanding healthcare access for underserved communities. Free clinics, scholarships, mobile medical units, she would shape it all. Simone's kindness had not been a performance. It had been the quiet, steady truth of who she was. And now the world had seen it. The road ahead would be challenging, but Simone was ready. She hadn't needed applause to do the right thing. She had done it because it was right. And that made all the difference.